Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. West Virginia Astronomy here. I'm Jonathan. I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about this L-Extreme filter that everybody seems to be having a problem with their camera spitting out a really red image. Um, I wanted to stress, guys, that the main difference between these two filters is the L-Extreme is allowing only 7 nanometers of hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3 through on your camera sensor, and the L-Enhance is allowing, like, I think 24 nanometers of oxygen 3 and 10 nanometers of hydrogen alpha and 24 nanometers of H beta, I think, or something. I may be wrong about that, but the main difference is with that hydrogen beta gone, it tends to show up as light pollution in your images. So I think that's the main difference why your images are showing up so red, is because you're getting a better signal ultimately. You're not letting that H beta through that tends to look like light pollution, and probably tone down those reds a little bit because of the light pollution being in with it. So I wanted to show you how I get that done on my computer and how I've been dealing with that really red image. It's a great upgrade, guys, from the L-Enhance, and I'm glad I made the upgrade, and you can get some amazing results. And this is the way I found that maximizes and uses the filter and gets the most out of it. So we'll jump on the computer and I'll show you how I get that done. Okay guys, here we are on the computer, and we're going to start with opening up Astropixel Processor. It's going to tell us to open up our working directory here. So I'm going to go down and find where my files are. Okay, you're going to want to click here, and I'm doing 2 sessions, so I'm going to leave the second block checked, and I'm going to name the file here. I'm going to name it Horsehead Nebula RGB. Two nights. Okay, so we're gonna click on raw fits, and we're gonna click this option here, and we're gonna change this to RGB. That's what it is for ZWO cameras. You might want to check with yours. And okay, so we're gonna go here, and we're gonna open up our first session of light frames. We're gonna open up our flats. Session 1. We're gonna open up our darks. Session 1. We're going to open up our dark flats. Session 1. Okay, we're going to go to our session 2 lights. Select all of them. Session 1, or session 2, I mean. Now I'm going to open my flats for session 2. And I've pre-organized these beforehand to keep everything organized. I'm going to open up the darks. These are all 300-second exposures, session 2. And we're going to open up our dark flats for session 2. Okay, now we got them all checked. We're going to go to click this tab, calibrate, and I usually just leave these things in the settings they're on. You can fool around with them a little bit, but I usually just leave them as they are. Now you want to click create masters and assign to lights. Now this takes a minute, so I'm going to fast forward and skip the waiting for it to get done part. Alright, now you want to come up here and click Analyze Stars, and click Analyze Stars. Okay. Now, we want to go up here to Register, tab 4, and go down here and click Start Registration. And this doesn't take as long as the other steps, but it still takes a couple minutes. Okay, now we're going to go up here and click Normalize and normalize lights. Okay, so now we're gonna go over here and click tab 6, integrate. We're gonna I know all of the frames were good, so we're gonna go ahead and stack all 53 of them. I don't change anything else really. Just leave it as it is and click integrate. And here is where you can name it whatever you want. I've already named it, and click start. Now this takes a little bit of time. I will come back when it's done. Okay, now that we have our RGB finished image, it's going to pop up here in just a second. We're going to go ahead and do 3 more stacks, because I'm going to do an RGB stack and I'm going to do the Hubble palette stack, extracting the hydrogen alpha and oxygen 3. So that's what we're going to do now. We have our first RGB stack, which looks pretty good. Sorry about the framing, guys. This was from 2 separate sessions, and this is the best that it could spit out. So we can just crop that in after a while. But that looks great. So there's some noise around the bottom part there, but nothing I'm too worried about. We can crop that out if need be. But right away you can see how extremely red that looks. I understand why people are having trouble with this filter, and this is exactly why I wanted to make this video. So what I like to do is go ahead and click Tools tab and calibrate the background. And the way I do this, I don't know if this is really the correct way to do this,
but it tells you to make these little square area select boxes. And so I just try to go around the image where there's no really gas or anything like that. Just try to get the black background and make your selection boxes of just the background if possible. Um, so here we go. We're going to make our area select boxes. So I'll click here, here. Let's do one here, um, one here, and one here. And that should be good. Maybe, nah, that should be good. So calculate. Man, I'm just super happy with this data. It looks great. Very clean. Very nice. So I think the total integration time was right under 4 hours. I don't know. I'll have to check, but man, it looks good. So what I'm going to do now is click OK and save, and click OK and change this to a TIFF. OK. Just leave that, click OK, and it will save it. And what I also like to do is save a stretched version of the data. So right over here, I'll click save. And I just like to have a stretched copy, just, I don't know, to see what it looks like. So a lot of times it does a really good job with doing that first initial stretch, and I'll start my processing from this image. So I like to always just when I do my RGB stack, I'll save the calibrated background, and then I will save a stretched copy, and I will also uncheck the stretch box. So let's go ahead here to TIFF, change it to TIFF. Okay, okay. Change this to 16 bits. Okay. Now I'm going to go over here after this saves, and I'm going to uncheck this box and click save again. So we got 3 saves. We got our RGB, we got our stretched image, and we got our unstretched image. Now the reason why I do the unstretched image and the RGB is because I think the unstretched doesn't have a calibrated background, so I like to just keep it as raw as I can, just to look at it, see what it looks like in Photoshop. So that's what we'll do. We'll save this as a 16-bit. Okay, okay. See here where it says no stretch right there. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go over here and click here, raw fits, change this to an HA03 extract HA. Click yes, click yes. You're gonna have to normalize the lights. So you have to re-normalize the lights each time you do this. So here we go. I'm gonna pause it and come back. Okay, now we're back, and I'm gonna click integrate. Integrate. In this one, we're gonna go ahead and change the name up here to, instead of RGB, we're gonna change this to HA. Click OK, and we'll let it do its integration. and we will come back when it's done. Okay, here we are back. Here's the HA stack, and man, that looks good. So what we're going to do, we're going to save this right here. And this is the HA stretched. See the stretch right there? Okay. Changes to TIFF, 16 bits. Okay, now I'm going to uncheck that box and I'm going to save an unstretched version. Okay, change that to TIFF, 16 bits. Okay. Okay, now we got our RGB and we got our HA. We're going to go back over here and we're going to go back to raw fits and we're going to change this to HA03 extract 03. Click that, click yes, and then renormalize the lights. Normalize lights. Okay, we're going to let it do its thing. And so now we got our RGB and we got our HA, and this will be our O3. So we've calibrated our background on RGB. Let's move on. Okay, now we're back. We'll go ahead and click integrate. Integrate. And we're going to change this to O3. Click OK. Alright, we'll let it do its thing. Come back when it's done. Alright, here we are back. Here's the O3. We're going to go ahead and save. The stretch version. Here we go. Change it to TIFF. 16-bit. Okay. And we're going to uncheck the box. Save. No stretch. Okay. TIFF. 16 bits. Okay. Okay, now we're going to go over here again. And we're going to click raw fits. Actually, okay, I've done the HA, I've done the O3, I've done the RGB. Now we got one more, we got to do the S2. So come down here and choose HA03 mono. Click yes, yes. Normalize, normalize lights. You have to normalize each time. I don't know why, I guess just for the algorithms and stuff like that. Make sure you do that each time. Okay, we're going to click on integrate and integrate, and we're going to change this to S2. We're just going to title this S2. Click OK. Okay. This will take some time, But here we are, back with the finished S2, which looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and save it. This is the stretched version, TIFF, 16 bits. Okay. And save that unstretched version. Okay. TIFF, 16 bit. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we have our three files, our O3, our S2, and our HA. We're going to go to the tools and click Combine RGB. Okay, now we're going to go up here and change this to Add, and change this to SHO Hubble 2. Okay, now we're going to click up here on Add Channel and go through, and we're going to find our three files. Okay, we're going to click on our HA fits. Make sure it's the fits. So we're going to choose that. Make sure the O3 is the fits one, and the S2 fits. Select those three and click open. Okay, and it's going to ask you here to, it's going to ask you the red is hydrogen alpha. Click OK. Okay, and here's the O3. Go up here and click on this and click oxygen 3. Okay. And here's the S2. Okay, go down here and click sulfur 2. Click OK. Okay, now I'm going to do my multipliers over here. So, for hydrogen alpha, I like to bring it up to about 4.7. The red I kind of just leave alone. The green I bring down to about 9. Okay, and the blue, let's bring it green and 9. The blue I like to bring it up to about 18, and a luminance of about 35. Okay, for the oxygen 3, I bump this multiplier all the way to 10 to the max. In red, I bump it down. No need for red and oxygen. The green, I like to leave it on about 10. The blue, I leave on 100. And the luminance, I do on about 16. Okay, for the sulfur 2, I move it up to about 7, right over 7. The red I leave on 100, and I drop everything else. Okay, now click recalculate. And our image will pop up here in just a second. Okay, here we go. Here is the SHO Hubble stack. So we're back, and we've got our SHO Hubble palette stack. And this is very important to do both of these stacks. You will see why when we start to process the image. So what I'm going to do now is save this. Actually, I'm not going to save that yet. Sorry, guys. Let's go over here first, and we're going to save it over here first. Man, that looks pretty darn good if you ask me. If you look around the Flame Nebula, you can see some of the blue gas. It's really cool. Okay, so we're going to save this. Okay. Okay, so now I go over here and I click cancel. Okay. Okay, we're going to find our image down here and we're going to open it up. Clicking on it down here. Okay, now we're going to calibrate the background. Okay, so I'm going to click here, here, let's go over here, let's do one over here, and let's do one down here, and let's do one more here. That should be good. Maybe one more. Okay, let's click calculate. Okay, so now I'm going to go over here and click OK and save. It'll prompt me and ask me if I'm sure I want to save. Click OK, change that to TIFF. OK. OK. Now we have our Hubble calibrated background stack and our RGB calibrated background stack. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go up here and we're going to save a stretched version. Change that to TIFF. OK. OK. 16-bit. OK. And we're going to go we're going to save the unstretched. OK. TIFF. OK. OK. 16-bit. Okay. Alright, so that's everything that we need to do in APP. So now we're going to jump on Photoshop and pull these into Photoshop. Okay, here we are in Photoshop, guys. I've opened our RGB file. It's got our background calibrated file from APP. We've got our Hubble palette, and we've got our HA. So what we're going to do first is click up here, click on image mode, and change this to 16-bit channel. And then right here, change that from local adaptation to exposure and gamma. Click OK. Okay, now we're going to go to each one and do this. That one's already good. Image mode, 16-bit. Change it from local adaptation to exposure and gamma. Okay. So now we're going to change the size of these to go to image size, change this to 16 and a resolution of 300 ppi. I found that this is just a good
good size for prints, unless I want to go bigger, but this is usually a good size. Just click OK. And do that to each one. Up here, image size 16, 300 ppi. Image size. Okay, so now we got our 3 files, and they're all the same size. And usually in a tutorial video, you'll see people crop their images. First off, I don't do that. You'll see why here in a little bit, but for now, what we're going to do, we're going to start on this image, and we're going to do a threshold layer here. Bring the slider all the way over. You want it to be probably about like right there. You're trying to find the darkest area of the image here, so just zoom into a dark area with no stars. Click on your color sampler tool here, your eyedropper tool. Make sure 5x5 average is selected up here. Hold down shift and click. Okay, now we got our background layers here. So what we're going to do, we're going to delete this threshold layer. We're going to make 2 copies of this background layer. Okay, so these levels here, we're going to go here, click our magnifying glass, zoom out. Okay, our levels here, and what we're going to do, we're going to drop these levels down by clicking up here in the adjustments, levels. Bring this slider over, go about 17 on each. Control, Alt, Shift, and E to make a new layer. And let's do our first curves adjustment here. Click on curves. I like to click right next to the data here and use my arrow keys. I bring that up. Let's bring it up to 30. Control, Alt, Shift, and E to make a new layer. And we're going to do a new levels adjustment. Bring that slider back down to 17. Control, Alt, Shift, and E to make a new layer. Let's do another curves adjustment here. Click right next to the data. Let's bring this up. Let's go up to 25 this time. Control, Alt, Shift, and E to make a new layer. Bring these levels back down. Let's bring it to 16 this time. Make a new layer. Let's do another curve stretch here, right next to the data. And I'll tell you guys, starting off, the more time and integration time you have on a target, the more you can do this stretching. The less time, and it seems like each time you do this, you're degrading your image a little bit. So the better the data starting out, you'll find that you can do a lot more with it. You can tease a lot more out of it. So we'll bring this back up to 25, make a new layer, and let's bring these levels back down. Let's bring them to 19. Make a new layer. Okay, so we're going to do another curves adjustment here. Click next to the data. Let's bring this up. Let's bring it to 30. Make a new layer. bring those levels back down again. Now each time we do this, you can see that it's bringing out that red. It's bringing out the that emission nebulae here. Okay, make a new layer. Okay, let's take a look at this. I'm going to zoom in here. Man, that's just smooth as can be. Let's do some more stretching of this. So, I'll do another curve stretch here, right next to the data. Let's be a little aggressive this time. Let's bring it on up. Let's go to 35. Control Alt Shift and E to make a new layer. Let's bring these levels down one more time. Let's bring it down to 17 on the red. 16 on green and 17 on blue. That looks good. Make a new layer. Okay, you can see right away how the flame nebula here looks overly red, and people are having trouble to get this red balanced here. So what we're going to do, let's hide this for now. And as we zoom in, there's not a whole lot of noise. This was great data. There's a little bit of color noise in there. Let's take a look at these channels and click on the red channel. Okay, so what we're going to do now, let's go up here to our HA, and this was the stretched HA version that we saved. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go to our RGB, our red channel, Control A, Control C, and then we're going to go up here to File and click New. Now that's going to make us a grayscale new document, the same size. Just click Create. Now Control and V to paste it in there. Okay, so this is our red channel from the RGB. Let's go ahead and make a copy of that. Actually, we'll flatten this first. Make that our background. Okay, and I made 2 copies of it. So what we're going to do, we're going to go over here to our HA data. Control A, Control C. Go over here, Control V to paste it right on top. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we're going to drop this opacity down. Actually, click on the background copy too and bring that above the HA layer. So now we have our RGB on top. Underneath is our HA. So now what we're going to do, we're going to drop this top HA down to 50% opacity. Okay. Now shift click this layer 1, right click and merge these layers. Okay, so now we have our hybrid red channel of our hydrogen alpha data and the red channel. So what we're going to do, Control A, Control C, go back here to the RGB2 nights, and we're going to paste this into the red channel here. Control V. Okay. So now we click back on the RGB. Okay. Now click on layers. Now we're going to take our hydrogen alpha data, just the hydrogen alpha. Control A, Control C. Go back to the RGB and paste it directly on top. Control V. Okay, now we're going to change our blending mode here to luminosity and drop this opacity down. We'll go down to about 20%. Okay. And now Control Alt Shift and E to make a new layer. Now let's take a look at these levels here. Our red has bumped up more than the green and the blue. So let's go ahead and make a copy of this layer. And we're going to bring those levels back down by doing a levels adjustment here. This part of the histogram here is where my edges are uncropped. If we were to crop that in, it would clean that histogram right up. So I don't really worry about this line here. That's not data that I'm clipping. That's just the edges of the image. So what I'm going to do here, click on the red, bring that down. Let's go to 17. Let's bring the green down. I always stay like 1 point lower on the green because it seems to glow for some reason, so I always bump that down a little lower than the red and the blue. So let's drop our blue down. Control Alt Shift and E. Now let's take a look at the before and after we did that hydrogen alpha. So go to our history. So here is before and here is after. That's definitely brought up some of the red tone a little bit, but it's still kind of red. So what we'll do is we're going to do one more curves adjustment. Let's make a copy of this layer first. Let's do a curves adjustment here, and we're going to click right next to the data. Now we're going to click right after the data begins. And if we click on this point, when we do our curves adjustment now, the background should stay where it's at while the gases are enhanced. There you go. We'll bring that up to about right there. That looks pretty good. Okay. We'll go about there with it. Control Alt Shift and E for a new layer. Okay. Let's make a copy of this layer. Let's zoom in here and check our noise. Some color noise a little bit. So what we're going to do now, I think that looks pretty good. Now, what we're going to do here, we don't need our hydrogen alpha data anymore, so we're going to exit that off. We're going to exit this off. So now all we have is our Hubble and our RGB. Let's do the levels. That blue looks a little high. Let's bring the blue down. I'll bring it down 5. Looks better. Control Control Alt Shift and E for a new layer. Let's go ahead and flatten this image. Make a copy. Okay, so we're going to go away from this image for now, and we're going to go over here to the Hubble image. And we're going to do the same thing we just did. We're going to do a threshold layer, finding the darkest point. Get our color sample tool, shift click, and there's our levels for the background right now. So we'll delete this threshold layer, make 2 copies. Okay, we're going to bring those levels down. And let's just go ahead and bring this all the way into the data. About right there. Let's bring it down to 9. Control Alt Shift and E. Let's do our first curves adjustment here. We'll bring that up. Let's go to 16, Control Alt Shift and E. Bring those levels down. And we'll just keep bringing this right up next to that data. I don't want to clip data here. I'm pretty sure. Okay, we'll go about right there. We'll keep it on 10. Control Alt Shift and E. Let's do another curves adjustment. Let's go up to 20. Control Alt Shift and E for a new layer, and let's do a levels adjustment. Bring those levels down. Bring it back down to 9. New layer. And let's do another curves adjustment. Let's just go up here and we'll bring this on up to 19 on all 3. Okay. Control Alt Shift and E. I think that's good on stretching the image. We're not going to try to go any further. It's starting to introduce a lot of noise. You'll find that on doing the Hubble stack like this, it looks a little noisier, but the data is cleaner, it seems like. If that makes sense. Probably not. But I really like the way this looks, so what we'll do here, we'll just leave it alone, and we will check the channels. Let's look at our red channel, our green channel, and our blue channel. Find the one that's not as noisy as the others. It's looking like the green channel maybe. And we'll use, okay. Let's go to this red. Okay, so what we're going to do, Control A, Control C. Now click on RGB, go back to layers, and we're going to paste this on top. Control E, and that's using that red layer as our luminance layer here. Change this blending mode to luminosity, and let's drop that opacity down. To go about, small on the opacity, maybe 15%. Because like I said, each time we brighten this up now, it's going to introduce a lot of noise. So that looks good. Okay, I'm going to flatten this out. Okay, so what we're going to do now, set this over here. There's our levels here, 20, 20, 20. Let's go ahead and make 2 copies of the background. Oops. Okay, so now we have, also using Astronomy Actions toolset up here. That's something that I use on every single image, guys. It's really great. It's kind of pricey, $75 or something, but it's worth it. So what I'm going to do now is go up here and click on the actions, and I'm going to do a deep space noise reduction. Actually, let's do a local contrast enhancement first. So this is what we'll do here, local contrast enhancement. Click play. Okay, so let's check out the before and after. Before and after. That to me is kind of an aggressive change. So what we're going to do is bring this opacity down on that layer. Let's go to about 30%. You want real subtle changes. Astrophotography processing, I found that a little goes a long way. You don't want to do too much at once. So we'll look at the before and after, real subtle. Okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and make a new layer, and we're going to do a deep space noise reduction. See how that just masks all that emission nebula out of there. So you're not actually doing a noise reduction on any of the brighter areas of the image. That's why I really like that tool. It's worked great. It always cleans my images right up. Okay, you can hit it a couple times in a row too. There's before, after, before and after. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is, and don't worry about this around the edges, this noise, because I hate to say it, I'm probably going to crop this bottom of the image out and along this line here. But I do that at the very end, so you'll see what I mean. Why you'll understand why I didn't crop this out. So what I'm going to do now is take our RGB. Now let's take this one. Okay. And we're going to Control A, Control C, and we're going to go to RR, RGB image, and we're going to paste that right on top. Okay, now this is where the magic happens with that red. What we're going to do, change the blending mode. to linear dodge add and drop this opacity. Drop it. Okay. Now right away you can see that it's fixed the flame nebula a good bit. You zoom in here, it's not overly saturated anymore. You can even drop this down a little more. And I like to do, maybe, let's go ahead and take this one now. Let's shift click these two layers and merge these. Okay, now we're going to take this, Control A, Control C. Now the reason I didn't crop this is it makes it easier for each of the images to fit on top of each other, if you didn't catch that already. And let's paste it back on top of this one. Okay, so now change the blending mode. We're going to look around at a few different ones here. We're going to change that to light. Okay. Now we're going to drop the opacity. And let's change that from light to soft light. Okay. Now we're going to drop the opacity. To 50%. Merge these two layers. Now Control All, Control A, Control C, and let's go back to RGB and paste it right on top. Actually, we're going to balance these colors. Yeah, okay, so let's take our red channel, bring that back down, right up next to the data. Our green, do the same thing. And the blue, same thing. Okay, so we got 20 on our red, 16 and 16. Let's make a new layer. Now let's paste that other layer back on top. So what we're going to do, go back to the Combine RGB, Control A, Control C, and we're going to paste it right on top, Control V. Okay, so now we're going to leave it on normal, and we're going to change its opacity. We're going to bring that down. Okay, and as you can see, guys, that flame nebula has cleaned right up. It's not overly red. You got some good highlights here. You got kind of like this orangish looking glowing color here that's pretty cool looking. So what we'll do now, we'll set this on we'll do a 50% opacity on this layer. Okay, there we go. Now, Control Alt Shift and E, and we're going to go ahead and crop this now using the crop tool. I hate to cut out some of this flame nebula, guys, but I'm going to have to. Let's go ahead and crop that out on this side.
We might not have to. Let's hold off on the cropping for now, and you'll see why here in a sec. Okay. So what we do, we'll go ahead and just flatten the image here. Okay, now we're gonna make a copy, and let's go ahead and make 2 copies. And we're gonna go in here to Filter, Camera Raw Filter. Okay, we're going to zoom in here, and there's a little bit of color noise, not much. I'm going to click on the details. I really love Camera Raw because of these sliders here. I'll bring that up to about 15. That should clean it right up. Yes, no color noise. Okay, now we're going to do a small noise reduction to the entire image here. Okay, and we're going to sharpen it up. So there we go. Okay, so now what we're going to do, that looks pretty darn smooth to me. Looks pretty darn good. Okay, click OK. And let's look at the before and after. Before and after. Before and after. We can selectively sharpen this up a little bit later if we want to, but I think it looks pretty good. So what we'll do now, we'll flatten this layer. And we are going to save this. Save as. Now, you also need to, if you don't already have it, download StarNet. In order to do this tutorial and follow along, you need StarNet. It's a free software. You can download it for free, and it's great. It does a great job removing the stars, and I've had really good success with it. So what we're going to do, we're going to save this file. We're going to find our StarNet on our desktop. Okay, here's StarNet. We're going to save this image inside of StarNet. So Horsehead Nebula. Let's go ahead and name this RGB Hubble. And click Save. Keeping it as a TIFF. No compression. Save. Okay, so what we're going to do now, we are going to open StarNet. And we're going to bring, here it is, Horsehead Nebula RGB Hubble. And we're going to just drop it right over top of RGB StarNet. And this takes a little while, guys. I will pause the video and come back when it's done. Okay, when StarNet gets done, it puts the file right here, right where we saved it at. Okay, when StarNet gets finished, it will just save, it will say Starless here in your, where you saved it at. Or it will actually be in the StarNet folder here. So we'll
click on that. Or actually, we are going, that was just the preview that popped up. We're going to open that file in Photoshop, which is right here. Okay, so now we have our starless version, our regular version with the stars, and our Hubble image. So what we're going to do, now StarNet does a great job, but if you look closely, you can see these are artifacts left over from the stars. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take this spot healing brush, make sure it's on content aware here, normal, and we're going to change the size, and anywhere that you click here, it just takes that artifact right away. So I'm going to go around the image, and I'll tell you guys this now, it's really worth it to go through and do this, and get these stars out of there, get these little artifacts out of there. Because like I said before, it does a good job, but it's still not perfect. Now this takes some time, it's tedious, but doing this will give you a better overall image in the end. It's really worth it. I won't stress that too much. It's really worth taking the time to go back and do this. So I'm going to pause the video while I do this, because this takes some time, and I will come back when I'm done. Okay, so now we're back with our cleaned up image here. I've cleaned up all the artifacts for the most part. Just to keep this tutorial kind of short, I didn't really do as much as I'd like to, but for now this is enough. So what we're going to do now, we have our starless version. Let's go over here to our Hubble image, this one here, the combine RGB, and we're going to Control A, Control C. We're going to go over to the starless. We're going to make 2 copies of this, and Control V right over top of that one. Okay, now we're going to do pin light, the blending mode, and that will let only the brightest stars show through, but you get these dark little halos around here. So what I'm going to do, you get the starless version with only the brightest stars in the image. So here we go. We're going to shift click this layer, blend these two, merge these 2 layers. Okay, now you're going to Control A, Control C, and jump back to the other. Control V. Okay. Now we're going to drop this opacity, zoom into a star here. And you're going to drop this opacity down to fix that star. I like to go about 50%. And I mean, there's the before and after of the blended these two. I blended the Hubble image with the RGB image, and I've created this hybrid image here of the Horsehead Nebula. Now that everything is completed, we can go in here and crop this out. So what we're going to do, hit the crop tool, we're going to bring this side in, bring this up. I hate to do it, guys, but I'm going to have to cut some of that flame nebula off of there. Bring this over right there. Oh, I hate to do it, but we're going to do it. Stop down just a bit. Okay, so now we're going to take it a step further. Let's make a new layer here. We're going to select color range, highlights. And you want to select just the biggest stars, or just the stars here. And a little bit of the nebula selected, so let's go down here and use our lasso tool. Hold down Alt and click on wherever it's selected the gas, it will delete it from the selection. Okay, so now we're gonna leave this star alone. Okay, so now we're going to go to Select, Modify, Expand, 2 pixels. Let's expand, select, modify, 2 more pixels. Okay, so now let's feather that. Select, modify, feather, 1 pixel. Okay, so now we go to Filter, Other, Minimum. And drop these stars down even more. Okay, deselect that. Here's the before and after. Before, after. Before, after. We'll zoom into these stars and make sure they still look good. Yep, they look pretty good to me. Okay, so now I'm going to make a copy of this layer. I'm going to use the action tools and go down here and click Star Diffraction Spikes, Fat Stars. Okay, so that added some diffraction spikes on our stars here, but these bigger stars, it actually hurt those. So what we're going to do is take our eraser tool, opacity 100%, flow 100%, and we're just going to erase that off of there. Okay, now we can selectively go around here and erase any of the ones that we don't like. So, don't like that one. Those are okay. That looks good. I'm pretty happy with the rest. I'm going to erase this one off. Yeah, so Here's the before and after, before and after, before and after. Okay, now let's do one final view of the info here, our levels, which that's our background layer. They look pretty good. I think that looks pretty good for an overall image. Myself, I'll probably do a few more tweaks to this, really, but as far as this goes, from here on out, it's just personal taste. You can do some sharpening and some color enhancements if you want, but for the most part, this image is finished, and I'll probably go through and selectively smooth some of the darker areas around the edges. And like, the reason I cropped that bottom of the Flame Nebula out is there was a lot of noise down here from where the images didn't line up during the stacking, so I was forced to do that. But overall, I think this is pretty impressive for using the L-Extreme filter and getting the results that I get, and I wanted to share that with you guys. And yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and just flatten this image out and play around a little more, but yeah, that's how I do it, and hopefully, you know, you guys will make the upgrade and be as happy with it as I am. And until next time, clear skies.